We live?
We live.
All right, man. Well, welcome back, all the foodies and everybody that has been listening to us so religiously over the last couple months. But welcome to the BDSM podcast. This is Booze, Desserts, Smoke, and Meats. This is Professor Porkloin calling in, and I got my lovely co-host here,
the Meat Viking.
So today we got something special for you because it's been pretty chilly up where you're at and pretty much the north half of the country. We're going to kind of talk about some stews, some chowders, and some soups. So three different things there. Now there's a lot of things that come out of this. You know, I mean, I feel like chicken noodle soup, you know, French onion soup, tomato soup. So there's just a lot of things when you're coming into these three things, but I think we got a pretty good show for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Before we start off, we gotta come up with a safe word. So what's the safe word for today?
Base.
Base. Okay.
Yeah, because you know a lot of people talk about using a base for a soup, whether it be a soup stock or some sort of like bone broth. And so be a little word exercise here to try and eliminate using the word base unless we need to.
I was gonna say ladle, but base works too.
Dude, every time I see this ladle, I try and buy it for the house. And it's like this little ladle, but when like you put it in the bottom of your soup pan, right?
Okay.
And the ladle itself looks like the Loch Ness Monster. And I kind of want that, but every time I go and get it, it's sold out, and it's a shame.
That's hilarious. I thought you were gonna say something like the bird that goes down and gets the water.
Oh
and
yeah,
back up. But the Loch Ness Monster sounds pretty funny too.
It is. So now that we got our safe word established, what's in your cup?
Today I am drinking some beer. Founders. I'm sure you probably had some Founders before. I know, didn't you have a stout a couple weeks back?
I sure did.
Yeah, well, they have a porter, and it's dark, rich, and sexy. So
nice.
Pretty good.
None of those things.
About 7%. So it's got a nice little flavor to it. I like porters. We kind of established that way before stouts, all the dark beer stuff. So I saw this, it was on sale. And I'm like, dude, for a 6-pack, why not? Let's just pick it. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but is KBS part of Founders, or are they something different?
I think they're part of Founders.
Okay, because I know that's another really good brand. If you can find like their double, I think it's a double bourbon chocolate stout, super good.
Yeah,
you're gonna pay for it, but it's good. Like it's costly, you know.
Yeah, usually some of those double stouts, they're up there because they're usually like 10-11%. So I mean, obviously it's gonna be a little more expensive. But well, I'm drinking beer, man. What are you drinking?
So if you guys haven't figured out by now, I have a penchant for White Russians and also just cheap and easy drinks. I saw on their Instagram a couple of days ago, Screwball Whiskey posted a recipe for a drink that they have dubbed the Screw Putin. And it is cream, their peanut butter whiskey from Screwball, and then just, you know, your coffee or your chocolate liqueur, in which case I went with Godiva, and I just topped it with a Machino cherry.
All right, man, that sounds freaking delicious.
You know what it reminds me of?
Happiness? I don't know.
Almost like a rum-filled Reese's cup.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's the hit I'm getting.
I can get behind that. I love Reese's Pieces, man.
And all I did when I made mine was I did one shot of the Screwball peanut butter whiskey, one shot of the Kahlua rum, and then half a shot of the creamer.
Okay, not a bad little recipe. Before we continue on, then let's see what you're smoking, because that looks like a pretty fat cigar.
So we've talked about a couple episodes ago a maker called Drew Estate. And he has another brand out there called Acid, which I don't know if I can get a nice read on this label.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Okay, but this is his cold infusion or cold infusion tea cigar. And it's a long cigar. I mean, like it does have a very thick ring gauge on it. As you can see, like I don't really have like thick hands, and it's about the size of a finger.
Oof, it's a
Yeah.
long. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's just a long cigar. But like Acid, which is an infusion of drugs, his acid line cigars are an infusion of all sorts of different tobaccos. And so I don't misquote here. Let me see if I can pull up what's all in this.
So I guess one of those cigars are the ones where you're gonna sit for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Low and slow, hit that thing for 45 minutes to an hour-ish.
Yeah, this is a nice, like, long conversation with another cigar smoker cigar.
It probably pairs well with some bourbon too. I know a couple episodes ago we talked about that pairing, so I would probably pair it with maybe a bourbon or one of those rums.
Yeah.
You
know what? Had I not seen the simple thing of the screw Putin drink that I made today, I probably would have paired this with either a Gold Rush or a whiskey sour.
Ooh.
Yeah, and here we go. I'm pulling it up on my phone just because it's easier. So when you go and you look up cigars, a lot of the times on its profile, it'll have like a mildness indicator to like how strong or how mild it is. There are 5 listings here. This is listed as a 2, so it's a very mild cigar. It is a Connecticut wrapper, and its origin is from Nicaragua. It is supremely aged black tobaccos with the silky Connecticut wrapper, and then it's lined with some herbs, some oils, and other botanicals that are infused into the cigar.
Cool.
Yeah. And this would, outside of the coffee cigars from him, like the Java brand, if somebody hadn't ever smoked a cigar before, I would probably get them started on the acid line, because it's not going to be very harsh. It's going to have a lot of flavors in it. And it's kind of just like it's not like a smoky profile in your mouth. It's more of a mix of sweetness and like, it's just damn good.
Well, good. So any of the listeners that want to get some cigar stuff going, I'd highly recommend that Acid brand. And you can also check out one of our previous episodes. We were talking about some cigars with pairings. We kind of go into depth about the different types of cigars and whatnot too. So just a shameless plug for an earlier episode if you want to come back.
Oh yeah.
But let's move forward. So the big discussion for today is soup, chowder, or stew.
Yep.
You know, which one is reigning supreme? I don't know if we can really have a supreme ruler for out of the 3, because I feel like they're so different categories, you know?
And I think you're right on that. I think in each category, there'll be like the one that sticks out the most, but even by then, that's on by like a case-to-case basis, you know?
So it's kind of funny, because if you look at historians, like food historians, they basically say that soup is old as just cooking itself, because, you know, basically what they did is they combined a bunch of ingredients into a large pot and just created this type of nutritionist filling, something that's easily digestible and really easy to make. I mean, how can you mess up just throwing a bunch of stuff into a pot and letting it cook, right?
Right.
So this makes it pretty good for just about anybody. even if in that olden times, if you were sedentary, didn't do a whole lot, or even if you traveled everywhere, I mean, rich, poor people, healthy people, obese people, you know, they all ate soup, right? Or stew. Now, what I read, the difference between soup and stew really isn't a big difference, because a lot of the times you're still putting things together, except for soups are typically your appetizer round, you
Mhm.
know, something that you're going to have a small amount to be your precursor to your meal, whereas stews are your main course.
Right.
So uh, it's pretty cool thinking that soups are easily digestible, all that stuff, because man, whenever you're sick, that's the stuff that you got to have, because it's going to help you out and kind of get better. So I feel like the first thing you kind of have to talk about is chicken noodle soup.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The quintessential first aid of being sick, pretty much.
So I think chicken noodle soup kind of reigns supreme for a lot of other soups. Now, don't get me wrong. I love French onion. I love tomato soup. But if I were to see something on the menu besides French onion, I'd be like, dude, let's go with some chicken noodle soup, because it's so easy to make.
Hmm.
And the broth that you get from it, you know, if you get the real legit homemade broth where they take the carcass and throw it in there and just let it simmer for a while with some water, you just can't go wrong with that.
Right.
So question for you, with your chicken noodle soup, are you one to put like carrots and celery and stuff in it? Or are you kind of like Campbell's where you just do the noodles and the chicken in it?
I prefer the carrots and the celery. I like that extra texture. But if I'm sick, like just give me the noodles and the chicken. So I just want something easy to eat, and it generally for me, if it's to the point where I'm eating chicken noodle soup, it's because like my throat's just sore from whatever's got me down, or I'm super congested. And so I don't want to like sit there and like chew on the carrots, chew on the celery and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I do like big chunks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When my mom used to make stuff with the chicken noodle soup, she'd get the nice hearty chunks, basically what you said,
Mm-hmm.
and add those extra things into them. So, and this is where I kind of feel like that's a little different, because I could totally have chicken noodle soup or French onion as a main course. You know,
Oh
if I
yeah.
did like a French onion in a bread bowl or some weird crap like that, or I've had times where it was like a soup and a salad, I can feel like that's a meal instead
Oh
of a
yeah.
precursor.
It also depends though. Like I would disagree on certain soups, like a tomato soup where it's like tomato, a little bit of basil. But if it's like a chicken noodle soup or like a baked potato soup is another like good soup. Um, that and like a salad, I would call that a full meal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but even with tomato soup though, man, you always have to have the grilled cheese with it. And
See now,
I feel
now
like
you're adding
that's
stuff.
a
How you're adding stuff.
true. I know you're adding stuff, but when I think of just French, you know, just the
Yeah,
tomato soup, you know, like I think of tomato soup and
grilled cheese.
grilled cheese. I
Right.
don't think I would have just straight up tomato soup. I can see how that can be kind of a
Yeah.
appetizer then
Yeah.
versus, you
Yeah.
know, something that I would eat all the time.
Get your hot ketchup out of my face. You know.
So it's actually pretty cool how science has come around and how we've been able to make soups way easier to basically eat and
Hmm.
travel well, you know, because way back when they obviously threw it all into the stock there and then they had to let it boil up. But man, they have done things like canned the soup, they've made shit that's microwave ready, they've done stuff like dehydrated soup. So think about how easy it is to eat something from like 20 years ago. There's a show on History Channel, and I'm not trying to plug any of that other stuff, but these dudes wind up eating old school foods. And they had one from Campbell's. Apparently, this guy had a whole bunch of Campbell's soup from like the 50s,
Oh
and
wow.
they wound up eating some regular chicken noodle soup from the 50s. But think about that. If you really need soup, you can just open up a can that's been sitting there for 10 years. And as long as it doesn't have any, you know, wear and tear, it would be just as good today that it would be 20 years ago or more.
Right.
You know,
Canning.
as long as go for
Sorry,
it.
continue on.
I said, as long as there's no oxygen coming out of that, or
Yeah.
oxygen can get into it, canning is going to be your best bet.
Right. And that leads me to another episode that I'd like to do eventually, but sadly, I don't know enough about canning. I feel like I would have to get a third party on here to discuss canning, because I think canning is a skill that we need because of how useful it really is, but it's not taught anymore unless like you've got a parent or it was passed down in the family.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we could always get that one if I don't do canning, but I'm sure we could find someone that has that expertise.
I have somebody who's dabbled in it, but I don't think I have anybody who like cans.
Well, then here's another question for you. Once when we get into that type of stuff, with your soup, do you do it hot or you do it cold?
I like hot soup.
See, it's kind of funny because typically Americans aren't into cold soup.
Right.
You know, when I think of cold soup, I think of something like gazpacho. Have you ever had that before?
Nah, fill me in on what this gazpacho is.
Gazpacho is basically like cold salsa. You know,
Okay.
I mean, think of making a tomato soup, like it's got all the onions, it's got everything in it, but it's cold. So that's why I think of it's basically like salsa, but not really, because it's a little bit waterier than that, you know.
So it's like bad restaurant salsa.
You're not going to be able to dip chips in this gazpacho. So, but that's typically a Spanish style type of soup. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of cold soup either. Like I've had gazpacho before, and it's not bad, but it's definitely not my favorite. You know,
Not
I'd
your
rather
cup.
go with something warm.
You know, not to make a pun here, but it's instead of not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of soup.
Yeah. Would you rather eat your soup or would you rather drink it?
So, not sponsored here, but like my favorite soup brand out there is the Campbell's Chunky Soups. So, I would rather eat it. Now, caveat here. Ramen, I don't know because you got your ramen noodles, but like that broth at the bottom of that ramen noodle cup, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Dude, that's the best part for me there. So I like drinking that. But as far as soup goes, I would say I like to eat my soup.
Yeah, I agree. I think because our old etiquette kind of tells us, hey, it's better to eat rather than drink. I mean, a lot of cultures around the world typically consume with a spoon rather than sipping it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's in a container, because you have a lot of things that are put into it. Think of your chunky chicken vegetable, you know, or think of your potato soup, stuff that I just would feel awkward if you would just drink that down. You know, I can see at the end after you get rid of everything, yeah, you can drink down the broth. And I knew people that actually take the broth and put it into their coffee thermos just to keep it warm, and they'll drink that throughout the day if they're having, you know, throat problems or sick, or they feel sick. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we should eat it rather than drink it.
Right. Right. And, you know, situations be situational like that though. Say the very least.
But I think a lot of people wind up eating their soup.
Yeah. Especially with some like, you know, on this next segment, do you put crackers in your soup?
I do. If it's chicken noodle, if it's tomato and potato, those are the three ones that I'll dip up some crackers in and throw that in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what are they, saltines or whatever?
Yeah, I usually just get the saltines. Now, if we're going into chowder, obviously I'll have those little crackers,
right,
that I throw in too. But for soup, it's definitely got to be the saltine.
100%.
So,
But like you said, it's only on those 3 soups though. Like if I'm getting the hearty beef and vegetable soup or like the hearty sirloin burger soup style stuff, man, I don't need no crackers in that. But if it's the if it's that I'm sick, I need chicken noodle soup, yeah, we put some crackers in there.
okay. So when we're looking at soup versus stew, I feel like we got to get the stew out of the way before we go into chowders, because I feel like chowder is just a separate category per se, just
Right.
because of different, relationship. Usually you're going to have seafood with that versus stews and soups. You're going to have more of your poultry, beef
Mm-hmm.
type of addition to it. So typically with stews, again, there's nothing really different between stew and a soup, except for the stews are your main course versus an appetizer type deal. So some of the stuff that I looked at basically found there was a bunch of evidence of primitive tribes and old people, way back when, Amazonian tribes, that would use the shells of turtles.
Okay.
They would essentially boil the entrails of the turtle and various other ingredients. And so I almost feel like that's a turtle soup and not necessarily a stew.
Well, yeah, and turtle soup is delicious. I don't know if you've ever had.
I have, yeah.
So that it's been so long since I've had turtle soup. We're going back like probably 18 years.
Okay. Well, from what I read from some of my research is that basically if you take any combination of 2 or more foods, right, and then you simmer that into a liquid, that's technically considered a stew.
Okay.
So like beef stroganoff, Hungarian goulash, those are all stews.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, goulash dates back pretty freaking far. And the addition of spices as we wound up finding them kind of helped out with some of those, like paprika. Was found, 18th century, 19th century, I think.
Oh wow.
And they started using that within their stews. So I think one of the main ones that people are going to recognize is the Irish stew.
We talking like shepherd's pie here?
No, I don't think that's the Irish stew. I think that's more of because the pie crust typically.
Mm-hmm.
For Irish stew, you basically take your meat, and for them usually it's lamb or mutton. But I think for us, we can definitely do beef. Hell, if you have lamb, good for you too.
Right.
Basically, you take your potatoes, your carrots, your beef, and you throw it into a pot and just let it all cook up. Throw a little bit of some onions and some parsley in it, and you got yourself a traditional Irish stew.
Sorry, you said potato and it came through my speakers. And our kitten potato was like freaking out, and I thought she was gonna try and jump on the computer. That's why I was looking away.
I was wondering what you were looking over for.
Yeah. Yeah. So nice. Good old.
Yeah, so good old Irish stew, man.
I don't think I've ever had like a lamb-based stew.
Lamb is pretty expensive. That's probably why.
Well, yeah. Maybe one day when I have my farm, I'll make a lamb-based stew.
You gonna kill the lamb yourself?
That's the plan, dude.
So, well, so the last one that we have is gonna be your chowders.
Chowders.
Chowder.
Hit me up with the chowder. There's only one chowder that I know of, and that's that New England clam. And I can never go wrong when I order that New England clam.
All right, so I totally agree with you on this one. But have you had Manhattan clam chowder too?
No.
You haven't had Manhattan? Oh man!
I mean, like, hey, when we met, we were what, like 2 states apart, if that? but like you had all this other stuff that my state didn't have.
Yeah, true. But before we get into the different stuff of that, I guess we should see what really is a traditional chowder.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it depends on which one you're thinking of. If you're looking for clam chowder, Manhattan or New England, there's a bunch of varieties. So I guess that everybody has their own favorite type of chowder. But I think it really comes down to what's in it, whether it's white or tomato based. So for the New England, you're going to have your cream, but for the Manhattan, you're going to have your tomatoes. So that's really your big difference.
Okay.
But I think it kind of goes along back to the same way of how stews and soups are made, because it's basically thrown in a cauldron, just like the other stuff. The only difference really is that chowder is fish, and it used to be considered poor man's food. Because think about it, man. If you're fishing,
Yeah.
Even before chowder, if you look at lobster and you look at shrimp, they're bottom feeders. So way back when, they were given to the poor people or to the slaves or the servants, because they were bottom feeders. It wasn't until like the mid was it 1900s, I think, is when they finally realized that it's kind of a delicacy. So they stopped feeding the servants the shit and gave them even worse crap instead.
That's fucking hilarious.
So yeah, if you think about, just a simple dish of chowder is basically your vegetable and fish. So we all know clam chowder, but you can have fish chowder. You can have, as long as it's some type of fish or some type of seafood, you can have that as your soup, essentially.
Now, question here. Lobster bisque, would that fall under a chowder?
I think that would probably be considered a chowder. Because, again, you have your lobster, you have your tomato, and your cream. So I would consider that a chowder. I don't know if other people would consider that a chowder or not.
Right. I had that when I was up in Maine. And
it's pretty good.
Yeah, like you can't go wrong there. Man, I don't want to cook dinner tonight, dude. I might see if I can coax the old Shield Maiden of Meats into like getting Red Lobster tonight or some shit.
Well, it's kind of funny because when the old school, chowder, when that started coming around, typically people would use the ship's biscuits. And although most chowders today don't really have biscuits, but we tend to use those crackers that we sprinkle on top, and they're the little square ones.
Yeah, the itty bitty ones.
Yeah, exactly.
You all want a fun story? When I was somewhere in the single digits of age, we went to this nice restaurant, and I had New England clam chowder there for the first time, and I didn't know what those little crackers were, because I believe they came out on the dish. And so I thought I had goldfish in this New England clam chowder. And I was the most excited I had ever been for anything that I can remember of. It was like they brought me a new bike to that dinner table.
That's pretty funny.
Man.
So, yeah, man. So chowders, again, clam chowder, Manhattan is going to be your tomato-based stuff, so it's going to be runnier.
Okay.
When I think of like not a beef stew, but kind of like a beef stew with how runny the soup is, or the water, the broth. But if I had to take the two, I would definitely think New England is way better.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one of those things where I think it's because we like to eat our soup rather than drink it, where I'm wondering if people who prefer to drink their soup would prefer the Manhattan style, whereas you and I, we're soup eaters, and you got to eat that chowder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like even when that bowl's empty, you don't chug that thing. You scrape your spoon around there. You know what I'm saying?
Now, apparently in Florida, they have chowder.
Conch
So
shell
remember,
chowder?
yeah. So remember, chowder is basically your fish, so it could be used with anything. But I don't know if I would try it. I would try the conch chowder just to see how that would taste.
Yeah. When you
Uh,
said conch chowder, I thought they made it in a conch shell.
no, they take whatever the insides are out of the conch shell and then throw that into the chowder.
Isn't it just usually a hermit crab?
For the big ones,
Yeah.
there's no way that hermit crabs get that big.
Oh. I mean, I ain't watched Discovery Channel in a hot minute, so maybe there's octopus in there.
I would think so. I mean, they definitely use a lot of stuff on the sea anyway.
Yeah. Dude, I really want seafood now. I'm not even gonna sit here and try and deny that fact.
Yeah, here it is. So I just looked it up. So it's basically a snail.
Oh, like escargot.
Yeah,
Huh.
basically a snail is what's inside that bad boy. So they wind up taking the snail out and then using that.
Dude, that's the worst eviction notice you can give somebody.
But so other ones I've seen, cod chowder. Definitely, that's a New England thing too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fried cod is delicious, but that's for
Yeah.
another story. I guess they've got Bermuda fish chowder. Um, so there's a bunch of different types that you can get into.
What's the in your research, what's the Bermuda fish chowder? Is it just fish out of like the Bermuda area?
Let's see. So it's a tomato-based fish chowder, and it's from Bermuda, and it differs from the American version because it's darker. It's got a rich color, and all the ingredients are finely minced.
Hmm. I,
So it's a little different than ours,
so
but
it's like aligned with that Manhattan style where we talked about how you said Americans prefer to eat their soup where other people prefer to drink it.
I think this one's still pretty good though. I think it's still similar to it because it's a tomato-based one,
Right, right.
and essentially, they use the whole fish carcass, including the head.
Mm.
So, and they usually put peppers in it.
Ooh, I'd be down to try that.
So, yeah.
I'd be down to try me some of that.
Well, I'm sure you could probably find that.
In Bermuda.
Just look up Bermuda fish chowder, and you got yourself a recipe.
Oh.
I don't think your Red Lobster is going to work for that one, but
Nah. Honestly, I just want like lobster cakes. You know what I'm saying?
well, crab cakes would be pretty good too. But I
Yeah,
can see lobster cakes.
yeah. Well, I think there's one at Red Lobster, not sponsored. Wish they would. Where it's like crab and lobster combined. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A little crop, whatever the fuck it is.
But so if we had to pick your favorite one out of those three categories, so let's look at soup, man. What's your favorite soup?
Not sick. I'm gonna go with like a sirloin burger from Chunky Beef Soup.
Okay. I think for me, I mean, I just like the old school chicken noodle soup, man. If I
Right.
saw that, I would definitely say, sure, we're having this, and it doesn't matter if I'm sick or not.
See, that's the difference, is because chicken noodle soup is one of those things that it's like I can make it and then I can eat it for like 3 or 4 days. And if I'm sick, then I can live off that. But it's like I'm not gonna go to a sit down restaurant and order chicken noodle soup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that either. That stuff
Yeah.
I'll make myself.
Right. I ain't gonna go to not gonna go to a 5-star buffet and order the McNuggets. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the wife for me definitely loves French onion. I make a pretty baller French onion recipe. So every now and then she'll be like, "Can you make French onion?" And I'll go, "Sure."
So,
That's fine.
and I'll go, sure, is the most married thing.
Yeah, yep. But it's super easy to make though too. So,
Right.
if you had to go with stews, what would be your stew?
Ooh. Let me think on this one real quick. You got yours ready?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to go with that traditional Irish stew, man. I mean, you just throw in the meat. Now, obviously, I don't have the lamb, but any
Right.
beef would work too.
Yeah.
And that whole meat and potatoes and celery, just throw that in there. Like a hearty brings me back to when I was like 10 years old.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that. Um, because something about like that, you get those chunks of meat when you make that stew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That are like big square sizes that you almost got to cut up. And then like you put that on your fork, you put some boiled carrot on your fork, and then you get some like cut up potato on there and just one bite of pure joy. Yeah, I think the Irish got that one right.
And I think I already know what your chowder one is, and I think I have to agree on this one too.
New
I
England
mean,
clam.
New England clam chowder is just
It's
such
superior.
a solid chowder.
Yeah. That is something I would go to the restaurant and eat and not feel bad about because it's not something that I get on the daily.
Yeah, that's true.
So
And
I'm
then
not gonna go to Kroger and just like get clams, you know?
yeah, and I don't think I would trust anywhere up there to get clam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In case you're not aware of where my state's located, both oceans are pretty fucking far away.
I mean, mine's not that far away, but I
Yeah.
still don't trust clams coming from the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Although when I was in Galveston, no, we're not Galveston. I think I was in Port Aransas the last time, which is farther south.
Uh-huh.
They there definitely was an oyster bar, which was pretty good, but I don't think that they farmed those bad boys off the
Right.
coast.
No.
I think they were shipped in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, clear winner.
Clearwater.
I think it's got to be the chowder, man.
Yeah.
I think New England chowder is going to take the cake when it comes to the superior of those categories.
Yeah. I agree. And that's
Yeah.
just simply and it might only be because of the fact that chowder's not something that we can get on a regular basis.
Yeah, we're not in New England, man.
Yeah.
If you're in New England, you get that shit all the time. But
Right. So like this could be like the tip of the draw. Maybe people in New England are just nuts about chicken noodle soup. I don't know. I
I don't
don't know
know.
anybody from there.
So, I don't think so, because when I went to Rhode Island to visit some family a couple years back, we went to a chowder festival, and I mean, you want to talk about, there was like 50 chowders that you could try, and you just go down the line of, here, give me a little bit and just eat it. Give me another bit, just eat it. And I think they're still cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for chowder up there.
Like going to Costco on free sample day.
No, he definitely didn't have. We definitely had to pay for tickets on that one.
That's
You want to talk about eating your weight and freaking chowder, though? That was the best way to go.
oh, there you go.
So, and for any of our listeners that feel like this is different and you don't believe that chowder is the superior one, well, I guess you can come fight us then.
I would say you're wrong.
Because we are standing pretty tall on this one.
Yeah, we will challenge you to a drinking match, okay?
Not to diminish the other ones like the stews and the soups, but you just can't go wrong with the New England clam chowder.
Right. And it's just like it's good, man. Like I don't know what you want. Fight us.
Well, I guess that's it for today. So foodies, lovers, whatever you want to call yourselves, listeners, let us know what you think is going to be your superior, and then stay tuned for next week. We'll figure it out what we're doing.
Oh yeah, and I forgot, I got a special announcement to make. We will be opening a TikTok account where we ain't doing none of them stupid ass dances. Ain't doing none of them damn cosplay challenges or any of that shit. We're gonna be mixing drinks for you on that TikTok account, maybe making some desserts and stuff. Quick little
Okay.
1 minute episodes for you to see our process and then fuck back off with the rest of your lives.
Okay. Well, I guess we're signing off for today. This is Professor Porkloin, aka Dr. Chef Hubs.
And I've been the Meat Viking.
Enjoy your weekend, guys.
Enjoy.